Statement of equity, change in equity. Coming back here to this balance sheet, okay? On the right side, and once again, this thing here, this assets equal liabilities and equity, it really tells me that my assets come from somewhere. Where are my assets coming from? That is the story this is telling. Where are my assets coming from? Okay. So it's either going to be from debt or it's going to be from investment of the owners. I got to put money into it myself as the owner, or I have shareholder equity, people who invest in the company and have partner ownership. That's where the financing is going to come from. That's where my assets are going to come from. Okay. So the other component of that is like, well, equity, what is it? Equity, if you ever look at like a personal financial statement, let's translate this into like real life, individual, day to day. People are going to ask you what your net worth is. Like when you look at somebody's net worth, like somebody like a Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, billionaires, right? We look at them in terms of their net worth, like how much they're worth billions of dollars, right? So if we look at net worth, it is the same thing as equity, right? That's what equity is, it's net worth. So there's a formula here too. If assets equal liabilities and equity, well, your net worth is equal to your assets minus your liabilities. Right? That's what it's gonna be. That's your equity inside of the company. The idea, when we're looking at this change in equity, right? We want to know whether or not you're winning inside of this, right? This is a determining factor. Am I winning? Am I winning in my company? What does winning look like? Winning looks like, I'm getting more and more gain inside of equity as time moves forward. All right. Am I managing it well? Well, how am I managing the equity in my company? If I'm choosing to win, I want to actually have more equity, right? So I'm managing it in such a way where that's returning me more equity, right? That's winning, and that's managing it well. Like if I'm looking at it from the outside, and I'm looking at your company, and I'm saying, well, how well is this person doing? What are they winning? I'm gonna look at like, well, what's the turnover, like month over month, year over year, the difference in the equity, the change in equity, right? This is that statement, what it's telling me, right? What is the change in equity? Has it gone down? Has it gone up? How much has it gone up? Like, what is the growth rate inside of that in equity, right? So I'm gonna look at the performance of that. Is this person set up to win? Are they winning? Are they managing it well, right? So that's what that statement is going to tell me, and that's what you want to look at inside of your business. It's like, am I winning? Am I managing this well? All right. So from the performance aspect, I wanted to bring it back here because really, we go back to this story about Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad, when he and his friend Mike were in that driveway, and they were casting nickels, right? They were making money, the illegal way, and then the rich dad came up and said, "Hey, look, you're not too far off." And this is kind of how it's done. You get a business and you can really make money from nothing. You can really print money, right? This is the equity is what you're printing. The equity is what you're printing. Okay. So if I'm doing well, if I'm winning inside of my performance, this means that my net profits are positive and they keep increasing. And the net profits go back into the equity. Okay. So this is the translation and the interconnectivity of the financial statements. The net income at the end of the month, at the end of the year, what it is it positive? Is it negative? That goes into my equity, right? Other things taken are in consideration there too. If you have, sole proprietorship, partnership, S corp, These are what you call pass-through entities. And basically, when you have the concept of a pass-through entity or pass-through treatment, it really means that that business income is the owner's income, and the owners throughout the year can extract that income as needed. So when they're extracting the income as needed, this has an impact to equity. What do I mean extract income as needed? Like, well, I take like money from my business and I pay myself for my business. Not necessarily, well, it is in combination between wages and between draws and distribution, right? So how much of that I'm taking out as an owner is an impact to equity in the business, whether it's a net profit or loss type transaction with like such as a wage, because the wage impacts the net profits loss. If you're an S corp, you're paying yourself that W-2 wage, and it impacts net income, which also impacts equity, or there's that distribution component of it. And I want to acknowledge it's 10:30, guys. We know normally we're set to go to 10:45, and I've been wrapping these things up at 10:30. We're going to go a few extra minutes today so we can get this driven in, right? We're going to pound this in a little bit, all right? But we will finish before 10:45, okay? So I want you to understand that there's that component there where we're taking out, wages, and that's an impact to our net income, less net income, less equity that's in the company, or there's a direct extraction of that in terms of like a draw distribution, right? And that's also negatively impacting equity. The converse aspect of that is a contribution, right? The owner investment, right? So when we're financing, this is that whole idea when we're doing cash flow from financing, how much am I putting into the business for it to perform, for it to actually run and have the proper amounts of cash flow, enough cash flow to maintain and grow and flourish and operate, right? So now if I'm somebody who's, running my business and it's like my main way of income for myself, like for my own personal living, it's going to have a really tough impact on the equity of your company, right? So if you really need this business in order to live, it's going to be rough, right? To build it in a way where the equity is going to keep growing and growing and growing, because at the end of the day, you keep taking equity out of the company to support your own personal financial needs. But what if you were able to really focus on growing the equity of your business in order to have it stand on its own, in order to have it flourish, right? In order to strategically use that in the ways that we've discussed over the last few weeks, in terms of cash flow management, in terms of growth and performance, right? But the statement of equity gives me an indication of what's been going on in that way, right? All right, so net income goes into the equity. And then, am I managing it well? Like if I'm winning, the performance aspect of it is, am I winning? And that's, making sure my net income goes up, and that's going into the equity at the end of the period. And then, am I managing it well? It means I'm taking that equity that goes up, and I'm reinvesting it into the company in terms of assets, right? This is investing, right? We talk about our cash flow from investing. So I take that equity, I invest it into power units, trailers, property, other verticals. Like what are other verticals? Verticals are other business industries, right? That can actually help get another return on the equity. So I'm not necessarily doing all the performance by myself. I pick other companies to invest in, other industries to invest in order to help with that performance as well. So I get income from it. Maybe I'm investing in the stock market or some type of index. Maybe it's Forex, that I'm investing in, or I'm hedging it with some other, hedge fund manager that's making sure that the money that's sitting there is actually growing and performing well for me, like this being managed appropriately, right? Then we have something called vertical integration, which is, you have all these other industries, but they actually have some type of connectivity to what we do, right? So you own a trucking company, but then you have like maybe a brokerage, you buy out, integrate, and then you integrate that into what you do. Or maybe an insurance company, you just do commercial insurance for carriers, small carriers, right? Or a dispatching company, right? Or even you have something like what I have is like an accounting and a consulting firm that strictly deals with trucking industry. So vertical integration, right? So we actually added these things on and we're investing our equity into building these other integrations, like with other verticals. We buy these companies that perform well, they do that, and it actually improves the performance, creates a sure win, right? All right, so at the end of the day, what are we looking for? We're looking for this thing called return on equity, ROE. Yeah, you may have heard of this, and you may be familiar with this, you may not be familiar with this, right? Return on equity, but it's a big deal. Like if you're looking at investing in any company long-term, like if you're into stocks and you're looking into buying companies and investing in companies, and one of these indicators you're gonna look at is return on equity. And typically you'd like to see that be a number above 20, 25%, right? Which means that my sales that I'm getting are gonna be like my net sales, net income, right, is going to be at least 25% of what that equity number is, you know, time over time. And they want to see growth too. Like, what is the growth rate on that? Is that number growing period after period? What is that growth rate? And you want to see that growth rate be somewhere around 15, 25%, right? If I can do that with my company, distinctly, if I'm focused on that, well, wow, I'm doing really, really well, right? So that how well am I managing it? It comes down to this return on equity. That's the bottom line. This is your stat. Right here, this is your statistic. Am I managing it well? What's my return on equity? Okay, so fantastic. Hey guys, this is a great conversation. We're actually finishing up, our financial statement talk, right? Because these were the basics. We went over the balance sheet, we went over income statement, we went over statement of cash flow, and now we went over the change in equity, right? And we're putting all this together. All right, why are we putting this together? So that you have a foundational understanding and a picture of what's going on with your business. Performance-wise, like what am I looking at to understand, like if I'm doing well, if I'm not doing well, what kind of things can I focus on? And with these basics here, these foundational statements, there really is like some really drilling into it. Like you can really look at the ratios and see exactly like what's impacting one thing versus the other, and you can have a set data point, like a few set data points that you're looking at to understand how you're doing well. And this return on equity is one of those. Okay, yeah, net profit margins, we definitely want to look at those, right? And then we want to look at how well we're managing these profits. Am I extracting more equity from the company than what's needed to sustain my own living, right? And that comes back to how I'm managing myself personally too, to make sure that I don't really need extra money from my business, but I can just have what it's intended to pay me, no more than that, so that we can really focus on growing the equity in the company, which will in turn create more wealth and more freedom, more legacy for me down the line, right? And then we have those other key performance indicators, like we talked about return on assets, like ROA, right? How well are my assets performing, right? What does that asset give me distinctly now? Inside your trucking company, we can look at that per unit. Well, what does this unit bring me back every single period, every month, right? What is the actual net return, like cost per mile type details? And then what am I looking at as far as, the net, like what am I really netting, by unit? So a lot of these things we can look at by understanding what these financial statements are, these components are, and we can really drill into these KPIs or OKRs, key performance indicators or objectives or key results that we're looking to get out of our company. All right, so great, fantastic, guys. We're going to wrap this up. It's 10:38. This has been a great talk, man, a great conversation to be in with financial literacy. We're going to move into some new things next week. All right, we'll be back here at 10 a.m. on Wednesday for 10 Figure Trucking Mastery. All right, guys. Thanks. Talk to you later.